After Ethan got married, he did the unthinkable. He cruelly kicked out his foster mother, claiming she was a burden on his new life. Imagine the heartbreak of being thrown out by someone you raised, someone you loved like your own child. It's a betrayal so deep, it cuts through every ounce of trust and care you've ever given. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. While Ethan thought he had left her powerless and forgotten, she was quietly holding a secret. A fortune of $9.5 million, hidden away for years. Every sacrifice she had made, every quiet struggle she endured, had been building to this exact moment. And when the truth finally came out, Ethan's world turned upside down. He was shocked, humiliated, and forced to face the harsh reality that he had gravely underestimated the woman who had always cared for him. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about patience, cunning, and life's way of delivering justice. It's about how someone you think is powerless may secretly hold all the power, and how underestimating a person's strength can lead to a shocking and unforgettable lesson. The city was quiet that evening, the kind of stillness that felt heavy, as if it were holding its breath. Streetlights flickered along the empty avenues, casting long shadows across wet pavement from the earlier drizzle. A cold wind whispered between high-rise buildings, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and distant traffic. Inside a modest suburban house on the outskirts of the city, the tension was palpable, an almost tangible weight pressing down on the rooms. Ethan's new home, bright and modern, felt sterile compared to the warmth of the old house he had just abandoned. The walls gleamed under the harsh glare of overhead lights, but the emptiness inside mirrored his growing hubris. Outside, the city skyline stretched endlessly, glittering with life he had decided to chase without realizing the fragility of his own foundations. Inside the old house, silence reigned. The foster mother's belongings were carefully packed into boxes she had prepared for weeks, a quiet ritual of order and control. Every movement was deliberate, each step echoing faintly against the hardwood floor. A clock ticked steadily in the background, counting down the moments of anticipation and suspense. Through the large front windows, she could see Ethan's car disappear into the distance, unaware of the storm he had just invited into his own life. There was an odd beauty in the calm, the soft creak of the floorboards, the muted glow of the lamps, the faint sound of rain dripping from the eaves, but beneath it simmered an undercurrent of tension. It was the quiet before the inevitable reckoning, the stillness that precedes a storm. Every detail of the home reflected the life she had quietly built, the sacrifices she had made, and the secrets she had kept hidden behind the familiar walls. Even in his absence, Ethan's presence lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the betrayal and foolish pride that had set the stage for what was coming. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the personal drama unfolding within the quiet rooms. And within that silence, in the dim glow of the home she had once called a sanctuary, the foster mother waited patiently, knowing that every action, every misstep, and every choice Ethan had made would lead him right to the moment of shocking revelation she had long prepared for. Ethan was the kind of man who wore confidence like a second skin. Tall, sharply dressed, and always moving with purpose, he carried himself as if the world owed him success. There was an energy about him, restless, impatient, eager to claim the life he imagined for himself. But beneath that polished exterior, a subtle arrogance festered, one born of entitlement and a belief that he could outsmart anyone. He spoke with authority, often dismissing advice, and moved through spaces as if they existed only to accommodate him. Every glance, every step, hinted at his impatience and the fragile ego that had guided his decisions for years. In contrast, his foster mother moved with quiet precision. She wasn't flashy or imposing, but there was an unmistakable presence to her, an aura of patience and inner strength that demanded respect without uttering a single word. She carried herself with discipline, every movement intentional, every action measured. Even in the simple act of preparing dinner or arranging household items, there was a rhythm to her work, a testament to decades of endurance and foresight. Her eyes, calm yet sharp, seemed to notice everything, the smallest gesture, the faintest tone of voice, the subtle shift in energy. She rarely raised her voice, but when she did, it commanded attention, revealing the depth of her authority and the wisdom of experience. The dynamic between them was complicated. Ethan, eager to assert independence, often misread her patience as weakness. He believed he could control the narrative, dictate his own future, and leave the past behind. He underestimated the quiet power she held, the careful ways she had shaped her life and protected herself. Every sharp word, every dismissive glance from Ethan was met with a composed reaction, never impulsive, never revealing the strategic mind beneath her calm exterior. Supporting characters, like neighbors and friends, further highlighted the tension. Neighbors would whisper about Ethan's recent arrogance, exchanging glances that suggested something was brewing, while friends noticed a subtle restraint in his foster mother, someone who carried the weight of responsibility without complaint, yet whose silence hinted at secrets unspoken. Through these contrasts, the audience begins to sense the inevitable clash. Ethan's impulsive pride and her disciplined patience set the stage for conflict, creating a tension that simmers beneath the surface, visible in every gesture, every unspoken word. The power dynamic is clear. He may have the appearance of control, but she possesses the quiet strength, the hidden resources, and the patience to wait for the perfect moment to reclaim what is rightfully hers. By letting their personalities emerge naturally, the audience already feels the stakes, Ethan's arrogance, her wisdom, and the unseen forces that will shape the story's turning point. The morning sun barely filtered through the half-closed blinds when Ethan strode into the kitchen, his movements sharp, almost impatient. He didn't glance at his foster mother as she quietly prepared breakfast. The clatter of plates against the countertop was the only sound, punctuating the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. "Mom, I think it's time for you to move out," Ethan said, his voice steady but carrying an edge of finality. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes avoiding hers, as if expecting her to erupt or beg. But her calm gaze met his, unflinching. "Move out?" she asked softly, her tone even, almost measured, but with the faintest lift in her eyebrows, an unspoken question hanging between them. Her hands continued to chop vegetables, deliberate, almost ritualistic, as if grounding herself in the ordinary while chaos stirred. "Yes," he said, sharper this time. "I'm married now, and I can't have this burden in my life. It's time you went." His jaw tightened, and he shifted his weight, tapping one foot against the tile floor. The room was silent for a moment, save for the rhythmic chopping. Her lips pressed together. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice. Instead, she set down the knife slowly, wiping her hands on a dish towel, and turned to face him fully. "I see," she said, her voice calm, almost eerily composed. Her eyes didn't betray anger, only a quiet understanding, the kind that made one feel judged without a word being spoken. Ethan's fingers drummed impatiently on the countertop. You don't get it. I need to start my life. I have a wife, responsibilities. You're slowing me down." His words were clipped, precise, but the underlying frustration was audible. He looked away, staring out the window, as if the city beyond could validate his decision. The foster mother took a slow step closer, her movement deliberate, measured. "And you think throwing me out will solve it?" she asked quietly. There was no accusation, no harshness, only the calm precision of someone who knows they are not powerless. She let silence hang between them, the weight of decades of patience pressing down, heavier than any shout or argument. Ethan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "I'm serious. Pack your things. Today." She didn't react immediately. Instead, she allowed herself a faint smile, almost imperceptible, as if she were thinking something he couldn't yet comprehend. "Of course," she said at last, soft and steady. "I'll leave. But remember this, Ethan," her gaze locked onto his, calm and unyielding. "Life has a way of teaching lessons when we least expect it." A tense silence fell over the room. Every detail, Ethan's rigid posture, the set of her shoulders, the faint creak of the floorboards, spoke volumes. It was the quiet before the storm, a subtle collision of arrogance and patience. In that moment, neither knew how drastically the scales of fortune were about to shift, and the audience could feel the undercurrent of inevitability. A reckoning was coming, and no one could avoid it. Weeks passed after Ethan's cold dismissal of his foster mother, Yet he hardly noticed the cracks forming in his carefully constructed life. He threw himself into work, confident that leaving her behind would free him to pursue his ambitions. His wife, initially supportive of the decision, began to sense a subtle unease in him, a restlessness that no success or social validation could quiet. Ethan's ego, once untouchable, began to falter. Clients doubted him, minor mistakes turned into glaring failures, and his savings, carelessly invested, evaporated faster than he could track. Each setback fueled frustration, and for the first time, he began to question his choices. Yet, outwardly, he clung to his posture of control, projecting an air of authority even as the walls around him quietly crumbled. Meanwhile, his foster mother observed from the sidelines, unhurried and deliberate. She had not reached out, nor had she demanded retribution. Instead, she allowed events to unfold naturally, understanding the weight of consequences far better than Ethan ever could. Her presence loomed in his life like a shadow he could not shake, not because she was there physically, but because the universe, in its quiet way, seemed to be orchestrating her vindication. Ethan attempted to regain control. He arranged meetings, contacted former colleagues, and tried to assert authority in negotiations. Yet, each action felt hollow, as if the very air resisted his efforts. Frustration twisted his voice and hardened his expressions, but the failures were no longer external. They began to pierce him internally, forcing him to confront his arrogance. The very same hubris that had led him to dismiss his foster mother now mocked him with relentless precision. Then came the moment of confrontation, unplanned yet inevitable. Ethan returned to the house he once called home, forced by circumstance and desperation. The doors were familiar, but the atmosphere was different. Still, deliberate, commanding even in silence. His foster mother greeted him with the same calm composure that had defined her presence for decades. She did not lecture, did not chastise. She simply offered him a chair and waited. "Ethan," she said softly, "I hear life has been challenging." Her tone was neutral, yet it carried the weight of authority, integrity, and subtle reproach. He flushed with shame, unable to meet her gaze. I miscalculated," he admitted quietly, the first honest words he had spoken since their conflict began. The room was silent, punctuated only by the faint ticking of a wall clock. Every heartbeat echoed the imbalance of power that had shifted silently yet irrevocably. She nodded slowly, letting the silence stretch, allowing him to feel the weight of accountability without a word of anger. Then, with deliberate care, she revealed the secret she had kept for years. A hidden fortune of $9.5 million, amassed quietly through discipline, intelligence, and patience. It was a fortune Ethan could never have imagined, and the revelation struck like a hammer. Shock, humiliation, and reflection washed over him simultaneously. Ethan's ego, which had once dictated the terms of their relationship, was dismantled piece by piece. The power dynamic, so long skewed in his favor by his impulsiveness and pride, had shifted entirely. He realized that authority is not measured by arrogance or outward success, but by integrity, patience, and the quiet wisdom to endure when others cannot see. For the foster mother, the moment was not about vengeance. It was about exposure and equilibrium, allowing natural consequences to align with moral truth. Her calm, deliberate demeanor contrasted sharply with Ethan's flailing attempts at control, highlighting the depth of her strength and the futility of his arrogance. She had held her ground, maintained her integrity, and waited for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. A truth that required no dramatics, only patience and precision. By the end of their encounter, Ethan's reflection was complete. He understood the depth of his misjudgment, the fragility of unchecked pride, and the power of someone who combines foresight with unshakable patience. The lesson was clear: control can be fleeting, authority can be misplaced, and underestimating another person's discipline and strength can lead to one's ultimate exposure. In the quiet aftermath, the room itself seemed to reflect the shift. The city outside continued its restless pace, oblivious to the moral reckoning that had quietly unfolded within its walls. Inside, calm and deliberate, the foster mother had reclaimed her power, not through confrontation or anger, but through patience, integrity, and the undeniable weight of truth. Ethan sank into the chair she offered, the weight of his failures pressing down like a physical force. For the first time, he saw her not as someone to be dismissed or controlled, but as a force of quiet authority he could never have matched. The room was silent, but in that silence, the full measure of his arrogance became painfully clear. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse him. Instead, she let the truth speak for itself. Slowly, deliberately, she revealed the hidden fortune she had kept for years. $9.5 million tucked away, accumulated through patience, intelligence, and discipline. The calm precision of her disclosure contrasted sharply with the chaos that had overtaken his life, and Ethan felt the full weight of his misjudgment. His shoulders slumped, his head lowered. The pride that had carried him through life crumbled in an instant. Every sharp word, every dismissive glance he had thrown her way now returned to him like a mirror, reflecting his ego and folly. She sat across from him, composed, her presence unwavering, a living testament to patience, resilience, and the quiet strength he had failed to recognize. In that moment, Ethan understood. Power isn't measured by wealth, appearances, or authority over others. True power lies in integrity, foresight, and the ability to endure while others underestimate you. Her calm defiance, her deliberate patience, and the unspoken confidence of someone who knows her worth created a lesson he would never forget. It was not vengeance that defined her. This was not about making him suffer. It was the revelation of truth, the quiet reclamation of dignity, and the undeniable proof that he had underestimated someone whose strength and wisdom far exceeded his assumptions. The balance of power had shifted irreversibly, and Ethan, humbled and ashamed, finally faced the consequences of his impulsive arrogance. The turning point was complete, not in anger or confrontation, but in the quiet, deliberate unveiling of truth and strength. Ethan realized that some lessons in life can only be learned through reflection, humility, and recognition of another's unassailable character. The room, once a stage of tension and betrayal, had become a testament to the enduring power of patience, integrity, and the wisdom of quiet authority. The days that followed Ethan's confrontation with his foster mother were heavy with reflection. His life, once meticulously planned and confidently controlled, now felt fragile and unpredictable. Word of his misfortunes had spread quietly among friends and colleagues, leaving him isolated, forced to confront not only his financial loss but the moral weight of his actions. Every decision he had made in arrogance now seemed painfully short-sighted. Meanwhile, his foster mother moved through her life with calm assurance. She did not gloat, did not flaunt her fortune, and never sought revenge. Her victory was subtle but absolute, a quiet reclaiming of dignity and respect. Friends and neighbors noticed the shift, though none fully understood its depth. She carried herself with the same deliberate composure as always, but there was now a sense of untouchable authority about her. She had endured betrayal, injustice, and disregard, yet she emerged unscathed, her patience and foresight rewarded in full measure. Ethan, on the other hand, found himself humbled in ways he could never have anticipated. The extravagant plans he had dreamed of fell apart. His attempts to rebuild were slow and fraught with challenges. Every interaction reminded him of his impulsive cruelty and the consequences of underestimating someone he believed powerless. Friends who had once admired his confidence now watched with pity or quiet judgment, and even his wife began to question the solidity of his judgment. The foster mother, however, remained unaffected by his struggles, for her triumph was not in witnessing his suffering, it was in the restoration of her own agency. She had acted with integrity, showing that patience and quiet strength often wield far more power than rage or revenge. By keeping her fortune private until the right moment, she demonstrated that true authority lies in knowing when to act, and when to wait, allowing natural consequences to unfold. In private moments, Ethan reflected on the lessons he had ignored for so long. The realization of his errors, his arrogance, lack of foresight, and failure to appreciate the unwavering support of someone who had always cared for him, was humbling. He had been confronted not with vengeance, but with a measured, undeniable truth. Life rewards those who endure with integrity and punishes those who act impulsively out of pride. The city outside continued its restless pace, oblivious to the intimate drama that had quietly reshaped the lives within one modest home. Inside, The foster mother moved forward with deliberate steps, a quiet smile crossing her face as she carried on with her life, secure in the knowledge that justice, in its purest form, had been served, not through revenge, but through foresight, patience, and moral clarity. Ethan, humbled and reflective, finally grasped the depth of her wisdom. The fallout was complete, not in anger, not in spectacle, but in the undeniable shift of power, respect, and understanding. And in that quiet resolution, the foster mother's triumph shone brightly, a testament to the enduring strength of patience, intelligence, and unwavering integrity. Ethan's story is a stark reminder that arrogance and impulsive pride often blind us to the true strength of those we underestimate. He believed that authority and control came from wealth, status, and outward confidence, yet he learned too late that patience, integrity, and quiet resilience hold far greater power. His foster mother's triumph was not born of revenge, but of foresight, discipline, and the courage to endure without complaint. In her calm defiance and careful planning, she demonstrated a truth that resonates far beyond this story. Strength is not measured by how loudly one asserts dominance, but by how gracefully one navigates life's challenges, and how wisely one waits for the right moment to act. In the end, the lesson is simple yet profound. Underestimating another's patience and wisdom is a dangerous mistake, and life has a way of restoring balance to those who act with integrity. True power lies in calm authority, foresight, and moral clarity, qualities that cannot be bought, forced, or faked.